got number 1. We're going to start on number 2. Here's what I want you to write. Here's what they're wanting you to do. They're wanting you to find a common denominator for each pair of fractions. I want you to write the word lowest on top of that. That's important to me, that you find the lowest common denominator. Now, here's how I want you to write this. They've given you the fractions 3/8 and 2/3, and I want you to write it just like me. 3/8, 2/3 beneath it, and out to the side new fraction lines, just like me. Okay, here's what they're wanting us to do. I need to see your eyes. I don't want to see the top of your head. They want you to have something in common. These two numbers are not in common. They're two completely different numbers, and the denominator is the bottom number. So they're wanting us to find a number over here and a number over here that's the same exact thing that both of these can go into. Well, here's how we do it. We're going to find the biggest one first. Is 8 bigger or 3 bigger?
8.
So get your pencil on 8 and don't move it. Do not move your pencil. Now we're going to start multiplying times 8s. And we're going to see if 3 can go into any of these numbers. So the first 8 times 1 would be 8. Now ask yourself, is 3 times anything ever going to be 8? No. Now we're going to multiply 8 times 2. What's 8 times 2?
16.
Is 3 times anything ever going to be 16? No. Then what's 8 times 3?
24.
Is 3 times anything ever going to be 24?
8.
Yeah. It's a yes or no question. Yes. So there's your answer, 24. See, I told you it's going to be very obvious who knows their multiplication and who doesn't. Now here's what you do. You ask yourself, I need to see your eyes, how in the world did I go from 8 to 24? What did I multiply by from 8? What did I multiply times 8 to get 24? Say it.
3.
So right here in the middle, I want you to put a times 3, just like this. Remember, I told you that the dot represents multiplication. Now, if I multiplied the bottom times 3 to get 24, Kiara, then I got to multiply the top times 3 to find my new top number. So what would 3 times 3 get me?
9.
Okay, not 6, that's adding. 9 is multiplying. Okay, now we're on the bottom. How in the world do I go from 3 to 24? What do I multiply 3 by to get 24? Say it.
8.
8, so put a times 8 right there. And if I multiplied the bottom times 8, I've got to do the same exact thing to the top. So what would 2 times 8 get me?
16.
16. There's your answers. 9 24ths and 16 24ths. And look, I have the same number on bottom. That was the whole point, was to find something on bottom that was the same exact thing. Okay, that was the whole point of what I just did. Number 3. 1/6 and 4/3. Oops. Come out to the side and draw new fraction lines, just like me. Okay, remember we got to start on the biggest denominator. Okay, is 6 bigger or 3 bigger?
6.
Get your pencil on 6 and don't move it.
It's a great day for school at CMS. Good morning. Let's all stand, face the flag, and place our hands over our hearts for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It is now time for the moment of silence. You may choose to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in any other silent activity that does not interfere with others. The moment of silence shall begin now. In the cafeteria today, we will be having nacho bar, salsa, fruit, milk. Student council will meet tomorrow after school until 4. Officers will meet at lunch today in Mrs. Hart's rooms. Have a tiger day.
Okay, y'all just told me 6 was the biggest denominator. Get your pencil on it and don't move. So ask yourself, what's 6 times 1?
7.
Is 3 times anything ever going to get you 6?
Yeah.
Yes, so there's your new denominator. 3 times 2 was 6. So now on the top, we got to figure out how in the world, look at me, how in the world did we go from 6 to 6? What did we multiply by to get to 6? 1. So put a times 1 right there in the middle. And if we multiplied the bottom times 1, we have to multiply the top times 1. So what would 1 times 1 get me? 1. Now we're in the bottom. How did we go from 3 to 6? 3 times what gets me 6? 2. So put a times 2 right there. And if we multiply the bottom times 2, we have to multiply the top times 2. What's 4 times 2 going to get me? 8. There's your answer. 1/6 and 8/6. Number 4, 2/5 and 1/6. Come on, faster, faster, faster. We got lots of stuff to do. And I literally got it right off here. Hey look, Xander, you got it on your paper bed. We're on number 4. That's exactly what I did. Okay, now we got to find the bigger denominator. Is the bigger denominator 5 or is it 6?
6.
Find 6 and don't move your pencil from it. What's 6 times 1?
6.
Is 5 times anything ever going to be 6? No. Come on, I need your help. What's 6 times 2?
12.
Is 5 times anything ever going to be 12?
No.
What's 6 times 3?
18.
Is 5 times anything ever going to be 18?
No.
What's 6 times 4?
24.
Is 5 times anything ever going to be 24?
No.
What's 6 times 5?
30.
Is 5 times anything ever going to be 30?
Yes.
There's your answer then. Now on the top, we've got to figure out how do we go from 5 to 30. 5 times what gets me 30?
6.
So put times 6 right there in the middle. And if I multiplied the bottom times 6, got to multiply the top times 6. So what's 2 times 6, class? 12. There's your new top number. Now we're on the bottom. How in the world did I go from 6 to 30? What did I multiply by?
5.
So put times 5 in the middle. And if we multiply the bottom times 5, got to multiply the top times 5. So 1 times 5 gets me 5. There's your answer. 12/30ths and 5/30ths. You really should be catching on a little bit by now. You really should be. Number 5, 1/3. 4/5. Look, I got it right here off my paper, just like you have it on your paper. I would say don't write so big, okay? Write a little bit smaller because you're going to end up using too much paper. Okay, find the bigger denominator. Is it 3 or is it 5?
5.
Get your pencil on 5 and don't move it. What's 5 times 1?
5.
Is 3 times anything ever going to be 5? No. So what do? I say 5 times 2 now. What is 5 times 2?
10.
Is 3 times anything ever going to get me 10?
No.
Then I say 5 times 3. What is 5 times 3?
15.
Is 3 times anything going to get me 15?
Yes.
Yes. Then there's your answer. So on the top, Lainey, how do I go from 3 to 15? What do I multiply by? Three times what is 15? Oh dear. 3 times what is 15? Oh dear. 3 times what is 15? 5. I mean, that's a pretty simple multiplication fact. So if I multiply the bottom times 5, got to multiply the top times 5. So what's 1 times 5, class? 5. Good. Now on the bottom, Luke, how do I go from 5 to 15? What did I multiply by? 3. So put times 3 right there in the middle. And if I multiply the bottom times 3, got to multiply the top times 3. So Cooper, what's 4 times 3? 12. There's your answer. 5/15 and 12/15. Number 6, 5/8 and 3/4. We gotta find the biggest denominator. That's where we're gonna start. Is it 8 or is it 4?
8.
Get your pencil there and don't move it. What's 8 times 1? 8. Is 4 times anything ever gonna get me 8?
Yes.
Then use it. There's no reason to keep going if you can use it. Because remember, what do we want? Say this word. The lowest. That's what we want. So on the top, Hope, how do we go from 8 to 8?
Multiply it by 5.
8 times 5 gets me 8? No. 8 times what gets me 8?
Teachers, please excuse this interruption. Any 8th grade student who has not got their new Chromebook, please come to the Chromebook office. Any student who has not received their new Chromebook, please come to the Chromebook office. Even if you are missing something, I would like for you to come to the office. Thank you.
8 times what gets me 8?
48.
8 times 48 gets me 8? I'm not saying 8 times 8. I'm saying what can I put right here in the middle? 8 times something gets me 8.
1.
Okay, there you go, times 1. So if you multiply the bottom times 1, gotta multiply the top times 1. So what would 5 times 1 be, class?
5.
Easy peasy. Now on the bottom, Caden, how do we go from 4 to 8? 4 times what gives me 8? Times 2. So if we multiply the bottom times 2, Jake Lee, we gotta multiply the top times 2. So what's 3 times 2? 6. There's your answer. 5 eighths and 6 eighths. Start shaking your head if this is starting to make a little bit of sense. It's all multiplication. All multiplication. And refresh my memory. When did y'all start learning multiplication? What grade? Second grade?
Mine was first.
Mainly third. Yeah.
Mine was
A whole lot in fourth. Yeah. So you've had 3 years to learn your multiplication facts. What number? I'm not asking, okay? I'm asking the whole class, okay? What number are we on right now? 7?
Yeah.
3/10 and 9/8. We got to start with the biggest denominator. Is it 10 or is it 8?
10.
Get your pencil there and don't move it. What would 10 times 1 be?
10.
Is 8 times anything ever going to get me that 10 then? No, so I got to go to the next. What's 10 times 2? 20. Is 8 times anything 20? Keep going. What's 10 times 3?
30.
Is 8 times anything going to get me 30? What's 10 times 4?
40.
Is 8 times anything going to get me 40? There's your answer, 40. So on the top, Mr. Collin, how do we go from 10 to 40? What do we multiply by? 4. So Brooklyn, if we multiply the bottom times 4, we're going to multiply the top times 4. What's 3 times 4? Good. Now we're on the bottom. Miss Bentley, how do we go from 8 to 40? What do we multiply by? 8 times what is 40? Help her.
5.
5. So now we got to multiply the top times 5. Lainey, what's 9 times 5? Should have said 45. 12 40ths and 45 40ths. I'm begging you guys to learn your multiplication facts. I'm begging you. Because you're going to get left behind. Big time left behind. Number, what are we on, 8?
Yeah.
3/7. 1/2. We got to start on the bigger denominator. Is it 7 or is it 2?
7.
Get your pencil there and don't move it. What's 7 times 1, class?
7.
Is 2 ever going to be 7?
No.
You want to know why? Hey, because every 2 is going to be an even number. Count by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8. Did you hear 7? Why? 7's odd. And everything times 2 is always going to be even. Always. So we were at 7 times 1. That didn't work. So what do I have to do to this 7? I have to multiply it times what now? 2. What is 7 times 2?
14.
What do you know immediately? It's an even number. So is 2 going to go into that? You bet it is. Good. Now we gotta figure out the tops. So Mr. Zander, how did we go from 7 to 14? What did we just multiply by? We just did it. 7 times what is 14? Okay, I don't have time to wait on this. Say it.
It is 2.
2. Come on, you should know 7 times 2 is 14. Tell me the top now, Luke. If you multiply the bottom times 2, you gotta multiply the top times 2. 6. Now in the bottom, Mr. Cooper, how do we go from 7 to 14?
We multiplied 7.
Yes. So Hope, what's my top number then? You multiply the bottom times 7, you gotta multiply the top times 7.
7.
7. 6 14ths, 7 14ths. Really start shaking your head if this is making a little bit of sense. It's just multiplication. What number are we on now? 9?
Yeah.
5 12ths. 3 5ths. Oh, this is going to be obvious. He knows their multiplication on this one or not. Find the bigger denominator. Is it 12 or is it 5?
12.
Get your pencil on 12 and don't move it. Now, I'm going to give you a hint. Just like we did 2's and we knew that 2's had to be an even number, when you multiply times 5, what do you get always at the end of your answer? What's 5 times 1?
5.
5. That ended in 5. What's 5 times 2?
10.
That ended in 0. What's 5 times 3? That ended in 5. What's 5 times 4? That ended in 0. So everything times 5 is either going to end in 0 or a 5. So is 12 times 1 going to work?
No.
Why? Because it doesn't end in 0 or 5, does it? So what's 12 times 2?
24.
Is that going to work?
No.
Because it doesn't end in 0 or 5. What's 12 times 3?
36.
Is that going to work?
No.
No. What's 12 times 4?
48.
Is that going to work?
No.
What's 12 times 5?
60.
Is that going to work?
Yes.
Yes, because it ends in 0. Okay, Kaden, what did we just multiply times 12 to get that 60? 5. So, Jake Lee, if we multiply the bottom times 5, sister, we got to do the same thing to the top. 25. On the bottom, Mr. Collin, how did we go from 5 to 60? What did we multiply by? 12. So, Brooklyn, if we multiply the bottom times 12, we got to multiply the top times 12. What do we get? Yes. 25 60ths, 36 60ths. Okay. Number 10, 7 ninths. And 2/3. Okay, find the bigger denominator. Is it 9 or is it 3?
9.
Get your pencil there and don't move it. Well, what is 9 times 1, class?
9.
Is 3 times anything ever going to be 9?
Yes.
Yes, then use it. You don't have to keep going up. It'll work, use it. So on the top, Bentley, how do we go from 9 to 9? What do we multiply by? 9 times 3 doesn't get me 20. It doesn't get me 9, it gets me 27. 9 times what gets me 9? 1. So if I multiply the bottom times 1, class, I got to multiply the top times 1. So what's my new answer on top? 7. On the bottom, Lainey, how do I go from 3 to 9? 3 times what gets me 9? Huh? 3 times 2 gets me 6. 3 times what gets me 9, class? 3. So Xander, if I multiply the bottom times 3, I got to multiply the top times 3. What's 2 times 3? 6. There's your answer. 7 ninths, 6 ninths. Number 11, 3/8 and 9/20. Well, is your bigger denominator 8 or is it 20?
20.
Get your pencil there and don't move it. So what would 20 times 1 get you?
20.
Is 8 times anything gonna be 20? What's 20 times 2?
40.
Is 8 times anything gonna get you 40? Yes, then there's your answer. Some of y'all are catching on, I can tell. Kiara, on the top, how do you go from 8 to 40? What do you multiply by?
2.
8 times 2 is 16. Keep going. Oh, you should know this. Help her.
5.
5. 8 times 5 is 40. So Cooper, if we multiply the bottom times 5, we got to multiply the top times 5. So what's my new top number?
15.
15, because 3 times 5 is 15. Now we're on the bottom, Hope. How do we go from 20 to 40? 20 times what is 40? Well, 20 times 1 is 20. So 20 times 2 is, count by 20s. Like you got $20 bills, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Can you do that? Okay, stop. You're at 40. So what number are you on?
2.
2. So if you multiply the bottom times 2, Caden, you gotta multiply the top times 2.
18.
18. There's your answer. 50 over 40 and 18 over 40.
I like this one.
Hmm?
I like this one.
Because you know your multiplication facts. It's easy if you know your multiplication facts.
I want to do
I might as well be speaking what's some kind of foreign language. French or Spanish or Swahili or something.
that.
If you don't know your multiplication facts, I'm basically speaking a foreign language to you. Think about it. But, I mean, y'all just told me you started learning them in the 2nd grade. Oh my gosh. 2nd grade. Number 12, explain. Any mistakes, underline the word mistakes. In the renaming of the fractions below, show the correct renaming. So here we go. It's exactly what we've been doing, but they've made a mistake. Is everybody watching? How in the world do we go from 4 to 12? What do we multiply 4 by to get 12?
3.
So in the middle of that, I want you to put a times 3 right there. And if we multiply the bottom times 3, what have I been preaching to you?
The top.
Got to multiply the top times 3. Well, do you agree that 3 times 3 is 9?
Yes.
So that's okay. Put a okay right there on top of that. So the mistake must be over here on the second one. How do we go from 3 to 12? 3 times what gets me 12? So put times 4 right there. So if you multiply the bottom times 4, you got to multiply the top times 4. Is 2 times 4 6?
No.
What's 2 times 4?
8.
8. So 2/3 really was supposed to be 8/12, not 6/12. How did they get 6 right here?
They times.
What did they do?
They multiplied.
No, they didn't multiply.
3. They added.
They added. 2 plus 4 gets you 6. You're not supposed to add, you're supposed to multiply, okay? That's their mistake. Okay. Let's skip 13 and 14 and let's go down to 15. What's the price of what kind of gasoline does this say right here?
Premium.
Premium. You should underline that. That's important information. Because what do you see over here on this chart?
Regular.
There's regular and there's diesel, but what do we want? Premium. Put a star by it. That other is too much information in it. It's TMI. Okay, get back to premium gasoline. What is the first thing it says they want us to do? They want us to round it to the nearest what? Dollar. So how much does it say it is over here? 4.409, which doesn't really look like money. There's too many digits. So on your scrap paper, I want you to write 4.409, just like this, on your scrap paper. And the first thing we're going to do is round to the nearest dollar. Well, would this be the dollar digit?
No.
Is this the dollar digit?
No.
Is this the dollar digit?
No.
Is this the dollar digit? Yes. Underline that. So, what do we do when we round? We look next door and we see if the numbers are what?
Higher than 5.
5 or greater. Not higher than 5. It could include 5. 5 or greater. So is that 5 or greater? No. So what happens to this? It stays the same. And what happens to everything else? Turns to 0. So your first answer is $4. Now I put a semicolon because there's more than one question. So come over to your scrap paper and erase that line because we're done with that line. Okay, now, do you see where it said nearest dollar?
Yes.
Get your pencil on the next rounded. Now we're going to round to the nearest, what does that say?
Dime.
Dime. Well, when we count by dimes, let's count by dimes. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. We're counting by tens, aren't we? Well, would this be where we would count by tens? That's where we count by ones. It's dollars, isn't it? Would this be where we count by tens? Yes. So underline that. And when we're rounding, what do? We look next door and we see if the numbers are 5 or greater. Is that 5 or greater? No. So what happens to this? What happens to this? What happens to everything else? Turns to zeros. So $4.40. Now we're on the very last line that says rounded to the nearest what? Penny. So erase that underline. And where would you just count by 1 pennies? Would it be this one?
No.
That's dollars. What was this?
Dime.
Dimes. What's this?
Pennies.
Pennies. Underline that. And I gotta look next door, and I gotta see if this number is 5 or greater. Is it?
Yes.
So what does that do to that? Bump it up. So what's my new number? $4.41. There you go. There you go. Okay. Now, I need you to put your pencils down and I need you to look at something, okay? So I'm going to take number 6 from the front and I'm going to show you something. Okay? Just watch me. Everybody watch me. We came over to this side and we decided that 8 was the bigger denominator. So we put our pencil right here. And we said 8 times 1 was 8. And we said, would 4 go into 8? And we said, you bet it would. So that's why we picked 8. Because it was the lowest. I want you to pick the lowest. But on the back down here, what they're doing is they're giving you more choices than just the lowest. And I'll show you why. What if, right here, we would have said 8 times 2? What's 8 times 2?
16.
Is 4 times anything 16? Yes, it is. So guess what? That could have worked too. But you know why we didn't pick that? Because it wasn't the lowest. But it's still a common denominator. What if they would have said 8 times 3? What is 8 times 3?
24.
24. Is 4 times anything 24? It is. That would have worked too. It's not the best answer though because it's not the lowest. So 8 would have worked, 16 would have worked, 24 would have worked. So there's multiple denominators that will work. So look right here. On number 16, what does that say? Choose all. There's a couple of different choices for 2/3 and 3/4, and I'm not going to do this for you because I just did 11 on the front for you. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to write 2/3 and you're going to write 3/4, and you're going to come out to this side and you're going to draw fraction lines. And you're going to figure out if these would work, okay? Now, I am going to be a friend to you, and on 17, this is actually confusing. There's actually only one answer on 17. Okay? So you have those problems, and you have a practice buddy from yesterday, okay? If you finished all that, then you can read or work on another classwork. Go.